what's going on? You're tuned into the On The Beat podcast. Make sure you follow us on IG at onthebeat.podcast. This is your boy Supa Mario, and you're tuned in to the On The Beat podcast. Let's go. Yeah, you on the beat, talking on the beat, learning on the beat, watching on the beat. Get your skills up, won't you listen up? Yeah, you tuned in live, yeah, you on the beat. Yo, what's going on, man? This is your boy Supa Mario. I have a very special guest with me again, Miss J.G Lafleur. How you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
All right, I'm cool, man. I'm trying to make it, trying to survive the third level of Jumanji, aka coronavirus, whatnot, man. So yeah, we good, man. Hey, JG, she's back on the Beat podcast, and she's gonna ride with me today, and we're gonna talk game staging and how that is so important in the beginning stages of the record, quote unquote, the record or whatnot. It's the most misused concept throughout the whole record release process, or the recording process, or the mixing process, or the mastering process. And JG, I know you deal with it just as much as I do, or whatnot. Kind of like, explain to me, like, what is one key concept that is so important with game staging when it comes to that?
No clipping. I think that's the most important concept.
Yeah.
Is no clipping. Stay out of the red, because the red causes just distortion, and it just messes up your mix. And digital distortion it doesn't sound like analog distortion at all. So
yeah, she's hitting it right on the nail, man. She's hitting it right on the nail. Clipping, man, stay out of clipping or whatnot. And it's so important for that in the DAW, because that clipping is just sounds low. Just like that, you know what I'm saying? And I'm quite sure that hit the recorder or whatnot, yes. But you will hear that nasty little, like somebody took a pack of nails and it just hit something or whatnot, you know what I'm saying? Right. So definitely that was a good key concept, and we're going to elaborate more on that, how to stay out the red. Before we get into that, I'm gonna let J.G Lafleur introduce herself, and I'm so sorry about that. I'm so excited about talking about this, but I'm gonna let J.G Lafleur introduce herself for all the people that did not catch her interview a few weeks back. Miss J.G, you got the floor. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Okay. Once again, my name is J.G Lafleur. You can just call me JG, whatever the case. But I am a singer, songwriter, sound engineer, producer, pretty much anything that has to do with music. Just count me in. It's definitely a passion. So in a nutshell, that's me. That's how I spend my life. I eat, breathe, sleep music.
That's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. And I brought Miss J.G Lafleur on because she also is a degree, I'll say a degree audio engineer, as myself, or whatnot. And I brought her on just to co-sign and just to make it, solidify a lot of the things that we talk about on the Beat podcast. I can give you all the information, but I always like to get someone else's point of view on these type of topics. So Ms. JG, thank you for coming on. Let's go ahead and get into game staging. JG, feel like whenever you feel like it, you know what I'm saying, go ahead and just come on and engage with it or whatnot. But we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna talk about game staging, and like she said, clipping in the red. It's basically a rule of thumb. Stay out the red when you're dealing with a DAW. Definitely when you know what I'm saying, exactly. When you got like hardware, it's kind of like it sometimes it's okay to do it. You clip in and you'll duck into that red on a hardware device, console or whatever. It's more of a pleasing sound, and it's not so, you know what I'm saying, when you hit that red, and it's more like a pleasing sound. And I know you can attest to that because you work mostly on hardware, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, you know what I'm saying, it's always, you know what I'm saying, not always good to be in the red on analog, but it's a good practice, especially in a DAW. Now, when we talking about staying out the red, you know what I'm saying, on a DAW, most DAWs, if not all DAWs, they're on a full scale metering. And basically what that is kind of like you have 0 on your metering or on your channels or whatnot. You'll see that fader, it says 0, -6, -12, -18, -24, and so forth and so on. That is a full scale metering standard type of situation. Most DAWs, if not all of them, go off of that or whatnot. And you may see the terminology says 0 dBFS, but basically that's just full scale. Basically, that's telling you if you go past 0, you're in the red / clipping, like Miss JG explained earlier. Now, the good practice and a very, very good tool to utilize to stay out of that red in the DAW or the digital world is utilizing a VU tool. You can find a VU tool for free from various plugin makers, or if your DAW supplies a VU meter, definitely use that. And there's also third-party plugins like Waves. I believe Plugin Alliance have something like that. There's another thing called DP Metering, if I'm not mistaken. They have a VU meter.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah, and I use Studio One, so there's one built in with that. It's a free extension in Studio One, and it works wonders. The key with that is the VU meter, and JG, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but with the VU meter, 0 on a VU meter equals -18 dBFS. I'm just gonna say -18. And so basically what that means is when you hitting 0 on a VU meter to kind of like structure your gain structure or whatnot, you definitely want to stay around that or whatnot. And it kind of gives you that seesaw of, okay, I hit 0 on VU meter. Okay, I'm at -18. I'm good. Sometimes you can go a little bit above that, but kind of be careful because it depends on your sound source, how the dynamics and, going with the sound source or like that or whatnot. So that's it. It's just basically using a VU meter to kind of be in the safety zone, so to speak.
Right.
Am I right? Anything you want to add to that?
One thing I can add for people who are using their home studios, and I know we're saying to stay at 0, depending on the interface that you're using, you may not want to go too far above that because I'm not going to mention names because, just don't want to do that. But certain interfaces, if you go past that and get into the yellow, you start hearing that distortion. So you kind of want to make sure that 0 is the peak, meaning that's the highest peak. You don't want to really go over that. So try to set your decibel range within like maybe 15 to 18, 12 to 18. Just try to stay within a range and use a peak monitoring system to make sure you don't go over a certain point, and try to stay out the yellow if you can, especially if you're not using like a SSL preamp or something like that. Just try to stay out of that yellow because you're going to be upset when it comes time to mix, or your mixing engineer will probably be like, "What is this?" So.
Yes. And that leads to a good point, and a good segue into going into the different stages of gain staging. And I like to call gain staging almost kind of like controlling the signal flow or whatnot. I want to bring out an example, JG. I know you have some Louisiana roots, and I'm quite sure you heard of the song "Wobble Wobble" by 504 Boys, right?
We the 504 Boys.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? No Limit documentaries was on all the past 3 or 4 weeks or whatnot. And I'm not exactly sure, for all my audio nerds out there, pay attention to the song when Mystical comes on. And that part when he comes on, I thought I told you.
Yeah.
If you listen real closely, you can tell they recorded that in the earlier stages of a DAW, more than likely Pro Tools. And I don't think the engineer was ready for Mystical. You know what I'm saying? Because he clipped that and you can hear it in the audio recording, but it was like, you can't.
They kind of recorded too hot a lot of the times back then in the 2000s anyway. So, and Mystical, he probably should have backed up from Mike a little bit when he screamed, but that's another process within gain staging that you can use, a little trick stepping away from the mic, especially if you're using a certain type of mic that doesn't necessarily change the tone. So.
Yes, sir. Yes. And you know what? That's a good representation of and kind of like that segue where we're getting to is tracking. Tracking is basically, you know what I'm saying, getting your distance, you know what I'm saying, your proximity or whatnot. Like if I step away from the microphone, I'm right about about a foot, 11 inches from the microphone. And of course, you can see the difference as I get closer.
Mm-hmm.
About 3 inches right here, you can hear me pretty good. But I'm quite sure if I start, rapping or performing the way I'm performing, it's going to come out. So sometimes you have to train your artists that you're recording to kind of like, if they're going to get loud, step back a little bit and bring, use that.
Yes.
Move over here. Find
Lean
your
back,
spot.
like said.
Yeah. Find your spot where you want to get at where it won't clip or anything like that. And I just heard me clip just a while ago, even though I was making that adjustment. So sometimes you have to kind of like, a lot of engineers beginning, especially when I was beginning too, that's a hard thing to do, especially when you have somebody loud like a Mystical or someone that's just rapping, or they sing with so much control and so much just so much voice out there. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Have you ever ran into that problem, JG?
I actually have. I remember this was actually when I was at HCC and I was still a student and just helping out someone. And I was like, man, I have the gain turned all the way down. Like,
yeah.
Why are they still clipping, And it's just because they had such a dynamic voice. And it was funny because they were singing, I bust the windows out your car. So they were really busting the windows out of somebody's car. So you really have to, I learned that day to be like, hey, you probably need to step back from the mic a little bit, and I won't jump ahead of the game, but there are some other tactics that you can use when working with dynamic singers or artists or instrumentalists. There are several techniques you can take.
I think we're gonna go ahead and go there. I already know where you're gonna go. Compression, use the compression during tracking and stuff like that. There's many different type of compressors that you can use for different styles of performances that you have. The two most famous, let me back that up. Yeah. So the two most used compressors, and JG may have a different answer for this, and I'm gonna let her elaborate. But for me, I always use the optical and a FET or a FET style compression. And I found those two that works, for my recording style or whatnot. And I use the optical for mostly like R&B singers, someone that's mild tempered on their performance. And then I use a FET like a 1176 for most of the rappers. Because of how fast it can react to the signal coming in, but definitely a La 2A. It just sounds good on everything. It just depends on the performance on my end. Most of the time, like you got somebody coming in like this that I don't think that bulb is gonna react as it would with a FET style compressor. Right. What are some tools you use to control dynamics when it comes to tracking?
Number one is setting the gain properly on your preamp with your instrumentalist or your singer, whoever you're working with. Make sure you don't just go right in and just start recording. Try to get a couple takes from them, before you can really already be tracking and not tell them. And just get a few takes so you can see how dynamic they'll be, how soft they're going to be. You can really learn the character of an artist or an instrumentalist within those first few minutes of the session. You'll know like, oh, they're going to get loud or they're going to be really soft. So you can help them adjust their mic that way. You can adjust your gain. You can gauge whether or not you'll even need a compressor, You may have to use upward compression depending on if the singer's just too soft. You do have some people that are like that, and you can use downward compression to just kind of bring some of those peaks down. But the important thing about compression is that you don't want to overdo it in the beginning stages, because once you do it and the recording is over, you can't get those dynamics back. And you're not going to want to call the artist back in and be like, man, I got a trashy recording, so you're going to have to come back. They're going to be like, man, I don't want to come back, You want to make sure you stay within a sweet spot with your compressing. And if you're unsure, it's probably better just to adjust your gain properly and just not compress and post than to over compress in the beginning and boom, you have a squash vocalist. And sometimes, depending on the genre that you're working with, you may need some of those dynamics from that singer. Like if you're working with a Whitney Houston, she was a very dynamic singer, and she could start off all low and soft. You're going to want some of that feeling. So just make sure you use compression softly. Less is always more.
Yes. Everything she did, she threw the dart right on the bullseye and stuff like that. Definitely, saying some takeaways of what she said is, have that person do a run performance. I do that all the time, JG. I have them, they'll come in like, all right, man, go ahead, do a run through, man, do a little practice run. They'll get in there, and I'm in there, getting the dynamics right on the compressor and everything like that. And like you said, just a little hint, just in case they get loud, that needle will duck and everything like that. And you really don't want it to duck too much. I'll say, what's your safe haven on the negative side of things on the gain reduction for compressors?
It really depends. I will say maybe 3. Okay. Maybe 3 decibels, 3 to 6. I wouldn't do too much, just because, like I said, you can't get it back. Right. It's really just about, if you have somebody that's super dynamic, you can help them back off of it, so you won't have that distortion, especially if you're not using a state-of-the-art preamp. You're just using something in a home setting, and you have a compressor. Even if you have it, you're able to use it within your software. Some of the software is now updated where you can use compressors in real time. So you can use all of these tools to help you stay out of the yellow. Really try to stay out of the yellow as much as you can, just so you can have a smooth recording. Smooth recording leads to a smooth mix.
Yeah, it is, man. She made that sound so smooth, so smooth, whatnot. Yeah, definitely the safe haven for me is -3 as well. We're gonna move on, whatnot. We gotta watch the clock or whatnot. So we're gonna move on to individual tracks. So once you go through, the tracking phase and getting everything recorded and committing everything to audio, like she said, you want to stay out the yellow, but still leave a little headroom or whatnot. And because I'm gonna get to something right quick, leave a little headroom, stay out the yellow, because you're gonna commit that to audio. Because sometimes you will still need dynamics, and it'll come into the individual tracks, which is the next stage, stage 2, far as gain staging. A lot of times with the individual tracks, once you get all the recordings in there or whatnot, and you have, let's say, 24 tracks of vocals, 16 tracks of the beat and everything like that, you got a lot on your hands. There's a lot of gain staging you have to go through and make some decisions on where you want to start at or whatnot. It just depends on the song. There's really not a right or wrong way, if I'm correct, right, JG?
Right. It's not. Yeah. It's not mixing. It's an art and a science.
Yeah, exactly, man. And it all starts with, like, how can I say this? I'm gonna give it to. Well, I'm gonna let you explain the analog situation. I'm gonna give it from the digital standpoint. So on the digital standpoint, like, it just depends on how your DAW is set up for a signal flow. So a lot of people, they'll get a DAW and they'll just get to work. That's fine and everything, but you kind of want to understand how the signal flows in your DAW. I use Studio One, and it's pretty straightforward, man. You have an input control knob now in the 4.6 version and up, or basically Studio One's on 5.0.1, and you have an input control knob. And what that is like when you commit audio into the DAW, you can control the input knob. It's kind of like on a mixer, you have a line amp or a line preamp, or, saying the input gain knob. That's basically what that is. You want to kind of like make that adjustment to get your gain where you want to be at. Now, it's by taste how the beat is rocking and everything like that. But you kind of want to control that, because in the DAW world, if it's too low, then you're sitting up there and you're trying to turn everything up. So you have to kind of find a medium. For me, I do a lot of hip hop, so the beat has to be on point, has to be at a right level and everything like that, but not peaking. You know what I'm saying? I try to keep everything at around -12 overall, all the way through to the master track. And what I do is I get that beat where I want to, volume wise, levels, everything like that. And I'll make the adjustments on my vocals using the input gain knob and everything like that. But like you said before, staying out of the yellow. what I notice a lot of times, and it just depends on who's recording what or whatever the case may be. Some folks have bad cabling, you know what I'm saying, mic cables, bad microphones, noisy electrical stuff or whatever. So your noise floor, you got to pay attention to that.
Yes.
That's a good point, huh?
Yes.
Sometimes people record too low in the DAW sense, and when we turn it up, there goes that noise floor, and there's unwanted noise in the recording. So you kind of got to be mindful of that, and that's something engineers we really can't do.
They forget about it.
Yeah,
so
man.
Just to jump on what you just said about it's called the signal to noise ratio. You can run into that issue if you record too low, and you can also run into that issue if you have your gain knob on your preamp too high. So, and that's just because we're using electronics, and if you have your computer on for so long, you can hear the noise in your computer. And these are electronic devices, they might not be grounded properly, etc. So it will introduce a certain type of noise that you definitely are not going to want in a vocal when you start turning it up over the mix. So you want to make sure that you really stay in that sweet spot during the recording. You can use gain. If you're using an analog console, you can use gain and trim depending on the console or the preamp that you're using. You can use the gain to adjust the overall decibels of the input, and then you can use the trim to fine tune. You can also flip those knobs, and just depending on how you would like to adjust it and how your hands work, it's always centered around you and how you work. So remember that, just do what's comfortable for you, no matter what we say. We're just giving you an overall. But you can use the gain and the trim to adjust your input levels within the track. And also in Pro Tools has the same thing. We have clip gain, and you can just go right on the track itself in the edit window, and you can pull that clip gain down, or you can turn it up. And the cool thing about clip gain is it's pre-fader.
Yeah, it is.
So it's pre-fader. So it's before you get to any of your plugins, and it's not going to really affect whatever you have your fader adjusted to in your mix window. So
it is, man. Yeah, she touched on the analog thing or whatnot. And then from there, and I think this will go for analog and digital, you have to also be cautious of how you use your dynamics within the individual tracks. And also your EQ. And I know people know, and some people don't know. So I'll touch up on the dynamics, and I'll let you explain the EQ side of things.
Okay.
So with the dynamics, even though you're compressing, you're going in, you compressing, getting your attack release time, you're doing you whipping it up and everything. You turning the mix knob down, because some compressors have parallel mix knob on the compressor. So you're doing that, whatever the case may be, and you cranking that makeup gain up. A lot of people crank up the makeup gain and not understanding. Oh man, this is gonna turn I'm gonna turn it back. Nah, bro. Because what you're doing is now you have to also think, however you got that compressor before or after the EQ, it's still part of the signal flow. And the makeup gain is only used to compensate for the original gain that's lost during compression. You know what I'm saying? So be very, very careful using the makeup gain. It's not a output gain knob. Don't get it confused with that. It's more of a compensational type of tool, and that can affect the signal flow going into something like a EQ. It depends on how you flip-flop it or whatnot, and I'll let you explain the EQ side of things.
And it's good that you said that, because if you're doing something like compression, then EQ, if it's coming out too hot of the compressor, then you can introduce clipping into your equalizer. It's levels to, how the gain staging works. One thing that you can do to compensate for that is you can adjust the gain within your plugins, or within your outboard. You can adjust that input level, and you can adjust the output level, especially in EQ. Now, the cool thing about EQ is it allows you the opportunity to free up space. That's the perfect, I think that's a good way to put it. You're finding frequencies that are undesirable. And then let's say you have something that isn't within a range, like there's no sound coming, within this range on the EQ. You can cut out that low end frequency and reduce some of that noise level at the bottom end of your EQ spectrum, and then you can have that extra room so that you can turn something else up, like your bass, to make your bass boom, or you can use a low pass, high pass. You can cut off some of the highs so that you can have something else just push through your mix. There's just ways that you can use your equalization so that you won't just necessarily have to focus so much on your volume. You can use frequencies, cutting out certain frequencies so that you can have more room for something else. I guess that's my way of describing EQ.
That's perfectly it. You know what I'm saying? I guess what I can add to it, and you know what I'm saying, is just like, if you boost, be mindful of what's going to come out on the output side of things. And if you cut, just be mindful that, hey, you may have to make some of that up. I'm not exactly sure. I hadn't worked in Pro Tools in a while. I switched over from Pro Tools back in 2013, and I've been a Studio One guy ever since, or whatnot. But from what I remember, the 7 EQ, which was a stock plug-in in Pro Tools, it had a output gain knob, right?
It has an input and an output gain knob. Okay. So you can adjust those things,
and I know in Studio One, the Pro EQ, it has the same thing, but they also have a little added feature in there. It's called the auto gain compensation button, and when you press that button, it'll automatically adjust to the cuts and the boosts that you make within the plugin. And you know what I'm saying, you don't have to worry about, you know what I'm saying, turning anything down. You just go in there, EQ, and be cool with it. Sometimes it's a useful tool, but then also it's kind of like, whoa, you know what I'm saying, a little bit too much. So be careful of that if you're using Studio One and any other plugins. I've seen that on a couple of other third-party plugins where they have that automatic feature. Be careful of that, because it will give you a little bit too much and then desirable or whatnot. Moving on, we're gonna move on. We running shy on time right now, maybe like 13 minutes or whatever the case may be. We're gonna quickly talk about mix bus. I love mix bus processing. I love it because you have control of the signal now, you know what I'm saying, and you can really get in there and have fun with, you know what I'm saying, processing. JG, on the analog side of things, do you do a lot of mix bus processing on that side of?
I do. It's pretty much the same thing. DAWs and plugins basically emulate outboard gear and consoles. So for sure, if I'm mixing on a console or if I'm mixing just within the box in Pro Tools, I use those buses so that I can control the overall volume in groups. So I definitely love just to have drums, and one of my favorite things to mix. That drum bus, that's where you can really get that power.
Go ahead and just have fun on that compressor, man.
Yes, you can get that power. So you can also use your compressors on your aux channels, on your drum buses or your vocal buses, etc. It's just best to group your tracks, whether you're using analog or digital, and that just gives you more control over the overall spectrum of the mix, just versus just individual tidbits. I know in Pro Tools you can use track grouping. They have a few ways you can use track grouping. You can use auxiliary tracks, and then if you just want to control the overall volume, you can use the VCA master faders. Utilize those.
all of that, and I think a lot of DAWs now, as we speak, or have all of those features that you mentioned, and everything like that. And what I had watched a tutorial with I'm not exactly sure if you heard this engineer from Atlanta. His name is Carmen, and I'm a butcher his name. It's Carmen Cartree or something like that. Carmen Cartree, or whatnot. But he's a hip hop engineer, and he utilized a unique feature that I've been practicing for the last few months. I want to say like late part of last year, like November and stuff like that. But what he does is he have all his bus tracks, right? And he'll take a, not the master channel, but a master bus. So basically in the DAW, he'll, have all his bus tracks, and then he'll route everything from the bus tracks into one individual track, and that'll be the master bus. And he'll set that fader at -12. So what that does is everything that's going into that master bus, it won't, it's basically kind of like he's monitoring at -12, and he's allowing the monitors or whatever he's monitoring on, he got to turn that up. And it keeps everything right there at -12. That way, when he's done with the mix, hey, I got all this headroom. You know what I'm saying? What's that? Do whatever you got to do, or whatever the case may be. Do you have any master bus tricks that you want to share with the folks before we get up out of here?
I have used that trick before with overall mixes. It's a good trick to use with that aspect, and then using the bus is really good to use as a parallel compression type thing if you're trying to bring things up and just give like an extra, just an extra flair. Yeah. So my favorite tool with that, if you're just trying to get a little bit more dynamic range, but you're not trying to just overdo it, I like to use those types of buses for more of a parallel compression type thing, just to give it that extra snap.
Yes. Definitely. That's what. Oh, and we didn't even talk about, using buses or return tracks, and how that also it won't. It's not a major factor, but you still kind of gotta be like mindful of that for as the game staging with that as well. And when everything is said and done, JG, and you probably would agree, you need to have that headroom for the record, basically. Yes. You know what I'm saying? When it goes to mastering, or nowadays when it goes to streaming, that's a whole different conversation, but I can, we'll touch on that just a little bit. We got a little bit of time. Saying, like, just really with streaming, the I think the medium right now is at -14. And that's -14 LUFS. If you don't understand what that is, that's a whole nother show we could talk about, JG, at a later time. We'll talk about streaming levels and everything like that, because it's so brand new and a lot of people still trying to understand how it works or what is that or whatever the case may be. But just
use those meters. Use those meters for that. It's definitely a new concept, but if you use those meters that we were talking about earlier in the podcast, that will help you stay within that range, and just even with your mastering, when you get to that level, if you're a mastering engineer, it'll help you stay within that range so your track won't get, messed up when you try to put it on your streaming services. So yeah. And it's definitely a difference. And everything that we talked about tonight it kind of makes a difference in how your record sounds, especially on the digital platform, because you want it to sound clear. You want it to have punch and dynamics. And I hear a lot of music that get on these digital streams, and it's like this face right here. You know what I'm saying? It's like that. That's the style now, though, for electronic music, pop and rap. That's the style that they're going for. We've gotten so far away from using. It's unheard of to have a band come in all at one time to track nowadays. People just aren't doing it anymore. Yeah, man. I think and what you was talking about, that's just the new norm. I think around about -10 LUFS and -8 is right there on a lot of different songs. I don't have that reference material, but I have to do another podcast on that. And there's some websites where you can actually upload your music, and it'll give you a readout of where your record is right now as far as the LUFS scale, and it'll tell you where you need to be at. But I think the competitive loudness level is right around like -10, -8. -8, something like that. It's really in your face. It's really that this music now is all about just being, how far in your face can I be?
Oh yeah, man. So, this will conclude, gang staging, folks, man. I hope, the information that myself and JG provided will help you out in that. I know a lot of people, they just get in there and all they know is just stay out the red, and they'll push it to the limit. And
Don't do that.
When you're pushing at the limit, when you're recording, where else you gonna go? You don't have any more room. And that's where a lot of people get the difficulty of mixing. Right there at that point is the recording. So you have to understand it when you're tracking. I think, and that's why we elaborated on the tracking part so much or whatnot. So we running out of time right now, man. I wanted to just keep it short, sweet, and simple with you, Miss JG. Thank you for coming on and talking, you know what I'm saying, talking mixing with me or whatnot. Definitely have to bring you on and, you know what I'm saying, continue talking about game staging and the next steps. Would you want to come back on?
I would love to. This is awesome.
All right, well, cool deal. We'll try to conclude this within the 2 weeks, and you know, we'll find another topic that'll fit right behind game staging and go to the next level of that. And we'll try to squeeze in LUFS, but it's so much we can just put in. But for podcasting purposes and just keeping the time frame for you guys to listen back, I definitely try to keep it under 40 minutes. JG, I want you to go ahead and shoot your shout outs and give the people where they can find you at, and all on all your social media platforms and stuff like that. And we're gonna go ahead and ride out.
Okay, cool. Once again, my name is J.G Lafleur. That's JGLAFLEUR, and that's the spelling on Instagram, Facebook, SoundCloud, everything. iTunes. You can find me on just about every digital platform. J.G Lafleur.
All righty, yes, Miss J.G. Lafleur. I don't know, I said Lafleur and stuff like that.
I know, I did that on one of my tracks.
Oh, really? Yeah. Guys, you can go ahead and follow you can follow the On The Beat podcast. Excuse me. You can follow On The Beat podcast on Instagram at onthebeat.podcast. If you're interested in being on the show, chopping it up, if you're an artist and you want to do some promotion or just simply want to come on and just chop it up, man, feel free to shoot us an email at onthebeat.podcast@gmail.com. DM us at onthebeat.podcast, and we'll definitely take care of you or whatnot. Engineers, you're always welcome. J.G. Lafleur. I don't want J.G. Lafleur not to be the only one. I want more people to come on and chop it up and talk about mixing, production, and all that other stuff. Producers. Look, man, producers, where y'all at, man? I need to talk to y'all. I need y'all to have on and stuff. Like, come on to the show, man, and chop it up with us and whatnot. We're running at the end of time. Like I said, we talked about game staging. We'll definitely have a follow-up to this because now we're at a point where we can go this way or we can go that way with a particular topic. But we'll follow up with this. This is going to conclude the podcast, On The Beat podcast, game staging. You were riding with your boy Supa Mario and Miss J.G. Lafleur, man. Make sure you guys. Oh, by the way, JG, can I spit something out right quick? Yeah. I'm starting a Twitch channel. You know what I'm saying? It's called basically my Twitch channel is JCS Productions with a Z. So if you go to twitch.tv/JCS Productions with a Z, I'm starting a Twitch channel there. So all my podcasts, once they get edited down and put out there for distribution, I'm gonna run a replay on Twitch. That way, you know what I'm saying, we just increase the platform and everything like that. So I just wanted to throw that out there. You know what I'm saying, if you don't know what Twitch is, it's kind of like YouTube on steroids. They are strictly streaming. There's no pre-recorded stuff that you can do. So it's a good platform for, it's basically the new form of television. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. If you haven't heard it, definitely check out Twitch. I actually found out about it during coronavirus, and a lot of people have really turned Twitch into their own channel. You know what I'm saying? So it's like having a BET type channel and you do everything live. So there's a lot of music creators out there, a lot of chefs, and you know, anything that you need to do to get it out there to the masses. If you want to stream it live, Twitch is where it's at, man. We're coming up right here at the last minutes of the podcast, but definitely y'all check that out. We're going to start doing a lot of replays of past On The Beat podcast episodes and also this one as well. I just want to throw that in there. JG.
Awesome. That's some great info. Thanks for sharing that.
Oh, yeah. Not a problem. Like I said, man, we're going to go ahead and get out of here. JG, she says she'll be back, and we're going to touch on some more mixing topics and whatnot for you guys. And I hope that, you know, the information we gave you really will benefit you in your creative process or whatnot. This has been your boy, Supa Mario. This has been, go ahead, JG.
J.G. Lafleur.
And you've been on the On The Beat podcast, man. We are out. Peace.
This is.